So, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, not many have joined. 21, I can see. 22. Well, so this is an extra class. I do not expect much people will join. So let us start. If necessary, we will end early. So I am sharing, and today we will start a new topic, which is important as far as thermal power plant is concerned, that is steam turbine. So steam power plant we are studying. So this is steam turbine. A turbine is one of the most. Achha, have you in your hydraulic machine, have you studied any turbine? Have you studied any turbine in your hydraulic machine? Professor Sandipan Ghosh Maulik's course. I mean, Professor Sandipan Ghosh Maulik's part. Hello?
Pelton turbine, sir.
Pelton turbine.
Huh? Pelton turbine, you have started.
Almost finished also.
Almost finished. Good. The turbine is one of the most crucial parts of, important parts of steam power plant. It goes without saying. The conversion of thermal energy into mechanical work that takes place in a turbine. The first demonstration of turbine that was long back, that is 120 BC. It was called, I mean, it is named as Hero's Wheel or Aili Pili. Was first purely, and it was a purely reaction principle, based on purely reaction principle. That means it has got lot of similarity. It has got lot of similarity with Pelton turbine. Yes or no? Pelton turbine, which kind of turbine it is? Hello?
Impulse.
Impulse turbine. So it has got no similarity with Pelton turbine. It has got similarity with some sort of a thing which we are familiar with, that is lawn sprinkler. So you can see on this side the schematic view of this Hero's Wheel. So basically this is some sort of a container in which water is there and water is being converted into steam. Then through this and these two pipeline, it comes to this globe which is free to rotate, and then there are nozzles. Through the nozzle, this thing is coming out, steam is coming out. So if the steam comes out in this direction at a very high velocity jet, as a very high velocity jet, then according to Newton's third law, the reaction will be such that this nozzle will try to move in the, that means from the nozzle steam is coming in the forward direction, that will make the nozzle to move in the backward direction, and it will rotate because it is not free to have a linear motion. So this was the principle, and obviously this principle is just a demonstration. It cannot be made into a turbine which will conveniently produce mechanical work. So I have just given something from literature that this gentleman was a very good inventor. He has invented many things. So basically then you see, this is the principle. So people took a few more hundred of years to get a real turbine. And a steam turbine, that is a combination of nozzles and blades. All right. So this is also not a steam turbine. This is some sort of a gas machine which this gentleman, Hero of Alexandria. Actually, it is not Hero, it is Hero of Alexandria, he invented. So forget about this thing. So steam turbine, that is a combination of nozzles and blades. So basically in the boiler, we are making or we are generating high pressure, high temperature. That means high enthalpy steam. The high enthalpy steam, it will first expand through the nozzle and come out as a very high velocity jet. And then this high velocity jet of steam that will impinge on turbine blade. Blades are mounted on a disc just like this figure. Blades are mounted on this disc. So if the steam impinges on this blade, then the blade will get some sort of momentum and it will get displaced. But again, linear motion is restricted. It is mounted over a disc, so it will try to rotate the disc. And continuously there are so many blades, so ultimately the turbine will rotate. So this is the working principle of a turbine. So you see, first if we try to study turbine, because in all the turbine there will be nozzle. So it is important to see what is a nozzle and how steam will behave as it passes through the nozzle. What is the function of a nozzle? So we will devote some amount of time on steam nozzle. All right. Just a minute. So if we go to the next slide, just a minute. A steam nozzle is a passage of varying cross section. So you can understand. Actually, nozzle is very important because if you have to get a good amount of velocity, even you see the first demonstration of steam turbine, which is of course not very successful as a turbine. So here also we have got nozzle, because if we have to create high velocity, then this steam has to we have to make this steam pass through this nozzle. So why this steam will pass through the nozzle? Can you tell me why this steam will pass through the nozzle? Why this steam will pass through the nozzle? Hello? Nobody can.
Pressure difference.
Yeah. So outside the nozzle, that is atmospheric pressure, and inside the nozzle, we have produced steam with a high pressure. So basically, steam will expand from the high boiler pressure to the pressure which is there at the exit of the nozzle. Okay. Or in other words, one can put that the nozzle design will determine that what will be the pressure at the exit of the nozzle. And then obviously when the steam is expanding, then this pressure head that will get converted into kinetic head and we will get high velocity. So basically, let us go through quickly. These are not very important. Steam nozzle is a passage of varying cross section which converts the heat energy or thermal energy of steam into kinetic energy. During first part of the nozzle, that means initially when the steam is entering the nozzle, the velocity of the steam increases, but in the later part, the steam gains more volume than velocity. There is some sort of expansion, but not that much increase in velocity. That we will see later on. The main use of steam nozzle in steam turbine is to produce a jet of steam with high velocity. Smallest section of the nozzle is called the throat. So this throat, that is the smallest section of the nozzle that can be at the end of the nozzle and that can be also at the middle of the nozzle. So basically there are two types of nozzle. One is your convergent nozzle, and then the throat will be at the end of the nozzle. And there could be convergent divergent type nozzle. In that case, there is a convergent part which is small convergent part, and then there is a throat, that is the smallest area, and then there is a longest kind of divergent part of the nozzle. So this is in general, all the nozzles will be either convergent or convergent divergent. Anybody knows that where we use a convergent nozzle, where we can use a convergent divergent nozzle? Can anybody tell me?
Subsonic and supersonic.
Yeah. See, if we want the flow at the exit end of the nozzle to be either subsonic or just sonic, then we use a convergent nozzle. If we require more velocity more compared to, or larger compared to the sonic velocity, that means supersonic velocity. So supersonic velocity, if we have to get, then we have to use a convergent divergent nozzle. So that means what we are getting from this discussion, that if we try to, if we have to increase the velocity of the fluid, we have to use some sort of a device, stationary device. Stationary device means as a whole the device can move, but the device has got no moving part. So we use some sort of a stationary device called a nozzle. Now, if we are satisfied with velocity increase up to the sonic velocity, then we can use a convergent nozzle. And if we are not satisfied, we want to go for even higher velocity, then we have to go for supersonic velocity. Then we have to use convergent divergent nozzle. So you see, nozzle that is used both in case of liquid and in case of gas also. Okay, in case of gas also we use a nozzle if we have to increase the velocity. In case of liquid also we use a nozzle to increase its velocity. But in case of liquids, invariably, if it is a liquid, if the fluid is a liquid, invariably always we will use a convergent nozzle. And if it is a gas, that is our fluid whose velocity has to be enhanced, then sometimes we may use a convergent divergent nozzle. Please tell me why it is like this. Somebody should tell me why in case of liquid never a convergent divergent nozzle is used. Nobody? Hello? If it is not known to you, that is not a crime. So tell me, then we can explain it.
Because liquid is incompressible.
Because liquid is incompressible. So what does it mean? Liquid is incompressible means the local sonic velocity of liquid is very, very high. Theoretically, it is infinite. Theoretically, the sonic velocity through a liquid and through a solid, it is infinite. So sonic velocity is very high, that means it is incompressible. So we can never go for supersonic velocity in case of a liquid, even sonic velocity in case of a liquid. So always it is in the subsonic region. So always we will use some sort of a conical nozzle whose exit area is smaller compared to its entry area. But in case of gas, it is not like this. We can increase its velocity by going to the supersonic region. So we can use a convergent divergent nozzle. So convergent divergent nozzles are very well used in rockets. It is used in what? In jet engine. It is used in steam turbine also. We will see that it is used in steam turbine also. Good. So here it has been shown. I will not waste time. I have already discussed it. So this is a convergent nozzle. The second one is a divergent passage. So divergent passage, generally it is, we do not call it a nozzle. What do we call it? We call it a diffuser. All right. We do not call it a nozzle, though we have written it here that divergent nozzle. So divergent nozzle is not the correct thing. We call it a diffuser. Okay. And then convergent divergent nozzle, as I have shown here. Okay. So through a nozzle, basically the velocity will change. And if the velocity changes for gas, there will be also change in, of course, pressure will change. And for gas, there will also be change in density. These are also, you can just very quickly go through that in the convergent portion, drop in the steam pressure, rise in velocity, drop in enthalpy or total heat of the steam. This drop is not utilized in doing any external work because there is no moving component at all, but it is converted into kinetic energy. In the divergent portion, from throat to outlet, further drop in steam pressure. Obviously, the drop in steam pressure will occur. Please mind that it has not been written, but it is very important. It will occur if we have got sonic velocity at the throat. Further drop in steam pressure, rise in velocity, drop in enthalpy or total heat of steam, which is converted into kinetic energy. So all these things, whichever is written, it is only if the velocity comes to the sonic state at the throat. All right. The steam enters the nozzle with a high pressure, but with negligible velocity. Sometimes, or in most of the analysis, we assume that steam enters the nozzle with zero velocity, and that is called the stagnation condition. Steam leaves the nozzle with a high velocity and small pressure drop will be there. The pressure at which the steam leaves the nozzle is known as back pressure. No heat is, this is an assumption that we assume that the nozzle is insulated. Actually, nozzle is small and steam remains within this nozzle for a small period of time. So this is assumed that there is no heat transfer. And in most of the cases, we also assume the friction is also negligible. So if there is no friction, if there is no heat transfer, therefore the flow is considered to be isentropic flow or reversible adiabatic flow. Okay. So with this, let us go to the analysis of a nozzle. So here we are showing some sort of a idealized diagram of a nozzle, isolated nozzle. So this is a reservoir, very big reservoir. Very big reservoir, what does it mean, very big reservoir? And inside a reservoir, what could be the condition of fluid? So fluid, if it is a very big reservoir and insulated all this thing, then whatever small amount of fluid goes through the reservoir, the condition within the reservoir will not change. Not only that, if the reservoir is really large, then if steam goes out of the reservoir also, we can assume the steam within the reservoir to be at zero velocity. So showing this big reservoir means that we are assuming some sort of a stagnation condition here. And stagnation condition is represented with a subscript of 0. So H0, T0, P0, we can write rho 0 also. And we can write V0 is equal to 0. So these are the stagnation condition. And then this steam, which is having some sort of enthalpy H0, then it is entering the nozzle and coming out of the nozzle by expansion process. So if we apply first law of thermodynamics, generally in case of nozzle, we neglect the change in kinetic energy. So first law of thermodynamics, if I write, then between this point and somewhere here, we can write H0. Here there is no velocity. So enthalpy plus kinetic energy is equal to 0. That is equal to H plus half V square, and no losses, etc. are considered. All right. And then if we assume a perfect gas, then H0 is equal to CpT0, and then H is equal to CpT. So we can write this equation, and Cp we can write in this form, gamma minus 1 by gamma. Okay, gamma minus 1 by gamma R. So that is your Cp. Not that. 1 by Cp is equal to gamma R. Gamma minus 1 by gamma R. 1 by Cp, no? Cp is here. So 1 by Cp is equal to gamma minus 1 by gamma R. So all these things we have put. And here one quantity is coming. That is your gamma RT. This is your gamma RT. And gamma RT, if you remember, that root over gamma RT is equal to local sonic velocity. This is your local sonic velocity, and V square by, let's say local sonic velocity is A. So this quantity is V square by A square. So that is MA square, where MA is the Mach number. Out of, so far till this point, have you understood? There is nothing much. Little bit of fluid mechanics and little bit of thermodynamics. So do you remember, have you ever derived that A is the local sonic velocity is equal to root over gamma RT?
No.
No. How come?
We have, sir.
Even in sometimes I remember even in my time in class 2 we had to do this thing. So this is gamma RT. Please look into your any book of thermodynamics or whatever source it may be. So it is your gamma RT. From where does it come? Anybody can tell me? What is the expression of sonic velocity? Any expression you remember?
Some relation with bulk modulus.
No. Sonic velocity is equal
Sir,
to...
it's that Newton's formula, adiabatic.
Tick. But Newton made a mistake.
Laplace correction.
Laplace. Very good.
Yes.
Root gamma into P by rho.
All these things are our high school things. So C or A, which is the local sonic velocity, is equal to dP by d rho. Now Newton thought that basically sound is equal to expansion wave, rarefication wave, compression wave, expansion wave, compression wave, expansion wave, like this. And he thought that the process should be isothermal. So P and rho, P by rho is equal to RT kind of a relationship could be used. And with that, dP by d rho, root over dP by d rho, that can be derived and one can get a velocity. But then the velocity was not matching with the measured sonic velocity. Then Laplace gave this correction. He told, no, this has to be very quick. And if it is quick, then there is no heat transfer. Then the process is adiabatic. PV to the power n is equal to, or PV to the power gamma is equal to constant. And from there, if you derive, so please derive, somebody who is having a doubt, that then the sonic velocity came that C is equal to root over of gamma RT. You can do it, no? I have not to give one slide for this derivation. Okay, so I hope that you will be able to do it. So this is very important that stagnation property which is equal to T0 or which is equal to property with a subscript of 0, and that can be related to any other property at any other point. Property at any other point in terms of Mach number. So this is what we have got. That stagnation property can be related to the property of any point, or rather I should tell it in a different way because stagnation property is known. So property at any point of flow can be related to the stagnation property in terms of local Mach number. And of course gamma, which is Cp by Cv. So these two quantities will be there. The condition is we have taken perfect gas model. Okay, so this we have taken. But this is more or less valid. Why it is more or less valid? Why it is more or less valid? When perfect gas law is valid? Ideal gas law is
High
valid.
temperature and low
High
pressure.
temperature, low pressure.
High temperature, low pressure, and the range where we will work, that is valid. Okay. So sonic properties, etc. we are defining now. T is local temperature, Ma is Mach number, T0 is the stagnation temperature. Sonic properties are attained if the local fluid is imagined to expand or compress isentropically until it reaches Mach number is equal to 1. So at stagnation condition, Mach number is equal to 0. At sonic condition, Mach number is equal to 1. In between, we will have Mach number less than 0 subsonic condition, and beyond that, we will have Mach number is equal to greater than 1, Mach number greater than 1. So that is your supersonic condition. And sonic properties that will be denoted by P star, T star, rho star. And then this is the formula which we have derived. Then we can derive P0 by P. It is not rho. Please make a note. At the last moment I have seen. So P0 by P is equal to T0 by T gamma by gamma minus 1. From where do we get this relationship? We use two laws. One is Pv to the power gamma is equal to constant for isentropic flow, and equation of state Pv is equal to RT. So if we use these two laws, then we can get some sort of a relationship between P and T, not rho. It is not rho. Again, I am telling it is not rho. These two are mistakes. Sorry. Where is? So this is a mistake. P0 by P. This is also P0 by P. Please make this note. So from there we can get that then, as we have got some sort of a relationship between T0 and T, here also we get some sort of a relationship P0 by P. Similarly, we can get a relationship rho 0 by rho. Okay. So these relationships we can get. And if this P, or rather this T is what? This T is replaced by T star, then we have to replace Ma, Mach number, by 1. So then the stagnation property and the sonic property that will be given by this particular formula. T0 by T star, P0 by P star. So these are the formula which we will get. All right. So gamma, what is the value of gamma? Stupid question, no? Because if I have to ask the value of gamma, I have to tell for what material I am asking. So for diatomic gas, we know the gamma value is equal to 1.4. And for steam, it will be more or less. ज़्यादा होगा क्या कम होगा? Hello?
More, I think so.
क्यों?
Less.
For helium, it is 1.66. And for monoatomic gas, it is more. And as the number of atoms increases, then it will reduce, but it will not reduce at a very drastic rate. So 1.3 something it will be in case of steam. We will do some problem. We will see. Okay. So these are the things. So far, there is any question? There is nothing. I mean, these are very simple things. Okay. So we are considering a convergent nozzle. A convergent nozzle, and the pressure at the end of the nozzle, just a minute, pressure at the end of the nozzle, that is PB or back pressure. All right, PB or back pressure. And then initially the back pressure is high enough and it is equal to the stagnation pressure. So what is there? That PB by P0, that is equal to 1 to start with. And then what we do, by some method, I reduce the back pressure. So initially PB by P0 was 1. That means everywhere in the nozzle, the pressure is equal to 1 and there will not be any mass flowing through the nozzle. No mass will be flowing through the nozzle. So that means if there is a pipeline and both the side it is having the same pressure, why there will be a flow of fluid. So something like that. And then what I am doing, by some method, I am reducing, sorry, where is this? I am reducing the back pressure. So if I go on reducing the back pressure, my mass flow rate will go on increasing. So mass flow rate will increase. At one point, when it is a convergent nozzle or converging nozzle, when I have got the sonic pressure at the end of the nozzle, that is the pressure ratio, this is called pressure ratio, P star by P0, that is equal to your, PB by P0, that is equal to P star by P0, then we will have the mass flow rate to be the maximum. After that, if I go on reducing the back pressure, if I go up to 0 pressure, there will not be any change in the mass flow rate. As if the nozzle becomes totally ignorant that there is some sort of a change at the end of it. And this is called the choked condition, as if the nozzle got choked. That's why it is not able to send any more mass, or it is called the critical flow condition. And this pressure is called critical pressure, as I have already told. So this is what happens. And here the pressure is like this, that we come to this point, and after that this ratio remains P star by P0. Okay. Now why does it happen so? That physically I am changing the back pressure, but there is no change in the back pressure. Sorry, there is no change in the mass flow rate. Physically, I am changing the back pressure, but there is no change in the mass flow rate. There is a valve I am opening and flow through the open end is increasing. After some point, however more I open the valve, there is no change in the flow rate. Why it is happening so? Okay. I mean, if you have not read compressible fluid flow, then it is difficult for you to answer this. But have you done the nozzle experiment in gas dynamics laboratory? Of course, it is not called gas dynamic laboratory anymore. So have you done the nozzle experiment? Professor Guha generally does that. Hello,
No.
you have not done the nozzle experiment. Otherwise, probably some of you could have answered. Now you see, any disturbance we create in a compressible media that travels with a velocity of sound, local velocity of sound. That means, suppose there is a nozzle and through the nozzle there is a flow, and I have created a disturbance by opening the valve, or rather by changing the valve position, then a disturbance will be created. So disturbance will move, disturbance with its own velocity will move in both the direction, and this own velocity is your sonic velocity. Now, if there is a fluid and fluid has also reached the sonic velocity, then the disturbance cannot move upstream, because from there air is coming with a sonic velocity and disturbance is also trying to move in the opposite direction with sonic velocity. So disturbance will not be transmitted in the upstream direction. And this disturbance is nothing but information that we have changed the pressure at the exit. This information is traveling with sonic velocity. So as this disturbance cannot travel, its velocity becomes 0. So upstream air molecule will not be knowing that there is a change in pressure. So they will not be ready for further expansion. So that's why we will have some sort of a choking condition or critical condition. And it is possible only when the fluid is fluid is compressible, because in compressible fluid only the disturbance moves with your sonic velocity, local sonic velocity. Is this point clear? These are not to be taught in a steam turbine, but I thought that at least as you have not read it earlier, so let us discuss it a little bit. Otherwise, very important and interesting thing will not be known to you. Maybe you will learn it afterwards by reading something else. But at this point, this is one important piece of information. So tell me, up to this, do you have any question? And have you understood the sonic condition and choking or critical flow condition of a nozzle? नहीं तो कुछ क्वेश्चन है तो बताओ भाई, I will try my best to answer.
Sir, choking is not very clear yet to me.
अच्छा, choking is not very clear to you. I will try to explain it once again. If it still there is some sort of a ambiguity, then what I will do, I have not made any separate kind of slide. 1 or 2 slide I will make, and I will communicate it to, I will send it to all of you. But please listen, let me try once again. Imagine some sort of a nozzle. Achha, let me see whether I can go to a nozzle or not. Hey, not this nozzle. So this is a convergent divergent nozzle. And here, what we have done, we have created, we have kept some sort of a valve, which we are opening more and more. Initially, this is the stagnation condition, and this valve is closed, so there will not be any flow. If there is no flow, then if this is P0 over here, stagnation pressure P0 over here, here also it will be P0. That means this is we call back pressure. Back pressure will also be P0. So the ratio PB by P0, that is equal to 1. Then what happens, that we start opening the valve, flow takes place. So obviously there will be some sort of a pressure drop. Here the back pressure reduces and the flow rate increases. But this information that there is a reduction in pressure, how this information goes to the molecule upstream? It goes by local sonic velocity. This is the velocity of disturbance traveling in every direction. In this direction also, in this direction also. So in this direction, when the disturbance moves from this side, so local sonic velocity is c plus local fluid velocity is v. So the disturbance velocity becomes c plus v. In this direction, when it passes, it becomes what? C minus v. Now we go on increasing the valve opening. More and more fluid comes. At one point, locally the fluid velocity is c. That means fluid is also coming in this direction with c. The disturbance is also trying to go in the opposite direction with a velocity c. So what will be the net velocity? 0. And the disturbance will not reach upstream. That you have made some sort of a provision for more flow, this information will not be carried to the fluid molecules upstream. So fluid molecules will not be able to expand further, velocity will not be able to increase further. Is this little bit clear now?
Yes, sir. Just one doubt. Sir, so the pressure is still reducing at the outlet. So
Yeah.
what is happening to the
Pressure
energy?
Suno bhai. Pressure is not reducing just at this exit plane, but pressure is reducing over here. Take. Bolo. Now tell me.
Sir, so what is happening to the energy? Because velocity though is remaining constant, so velocity head is constant. Everything else, the enthalpy is constant.
Stagnation pressure is constant. During this thought experiment, whatever, this can be done also physical experiment, stagnation pressure is constant. When we do this experiment, what we do with a very big reservoir, we connect a small nozzle. Okay? So stagnation pressure is constant. Now here the velocity comes with sonic, the flow condition is sonic, but here the back pressure is low. Just after that back pressure is low. So here there will be some sort of a energy dissipation. Obviously, energy budget we have to keep constant. So here there will be some sort of energy dissipation, and energy dissipation, you know, that means dissipated energy gets converted into thermal energy. Okay? So that is what will happen.
Okay, sir.
Okay, very good. Okay. Acha. Then we go to Bernoulli equation. Again, in Bernoulli equation, as I have told, that I will neglect the change in potential energy. So dP by rho is equal to d of v square by 2. And if we do this, then it will be dP minus rho v dv. So dP by rho v square is equal to minus dV by d. So this kind of a formula we will get. This kind of a formula. And again, rho AV, density, velocity, area. This product gives mass flow rate, which is constant. So we can differentiate them and we can get an expression like this. So this is from mass flow rate and this is from Bernoulli equation. Okay? And then we will play around with these two expressions. So we will take these two expressions and then we will get by some sort of manipulation that dA by A is equal to dP by rho v square within bracket 1 minus v square by A square. A is the local sonic velocity. Please. A square is equal to dP by d rho. Already we have discussed this. So A is the local sonic velocity. Okay. So then we will get dP by rho v square is equal to 1 minus ma square. And everywhere we are assuming that it is isentropic process, reversible adiabatic process. Now this is very important. For Mach number less than 1, if Mach number is less than 1, then this quantity is a positive quantity. So what will be the change in dA by A? The same kind of change we will get for dP, assuming rho v square a positive quantity. Or rather, A is also positive. Whatever will be the change in A, the same change will be in dP. Means similar change will be there in dP. That means if area reduces, then pressure will reduce. And that comes from the Bernoulli equation. If area reduces, then velocity will increase. So kinetic energy will increase. So kinetic head, if kinetic head increases, then pressure head has to decrease. So if area decreases, pressure will decrease. Okay. And that is true for liquid, that is true everywhere. But for a compressible fluid, that is true only when the flow is subsonic. And for Ma is greater than 1, area change causes a pressure change of opposite sign. So Ma is greater than 1, so this is negative. So if dA and dP, then they will have different sign. If dA increases, so dP will decrease. So that's why after the sonic velocity obtained at the throat, then if we have to increase further velocity, we have to reduce pressure, and for reduction of pressure, we have to increase the area. The divergent section of the nozzle is needed. So have you understood this? This is also one good concept. Why divergent section is needed for increasing the velocity after the throat. First thing is that at the throat already we have reached the sonic velocity. If we have not reached, then this question does not arise. And after that, if we have to increase the velocity, then we have to increase the Mach number greater than 1. And for making Mach number greater than 1, to reduce dP, I have to increase dA. So that's why a divergent section is needed. ठीक है, थोड़ा इसको देख लेना बाद में, how this has come. This is very easy, but this is very standard. It is there in all the textbook. Unfortunately, our syllabus does not have this compressible fluid flow. So that's why this has not been taught to you, but this is the thing. ठीक है, any question so far?
So, sir,
So
that is like a rocket nozzle.
It could be a rocket nozzle, it could be a nozzle of even steam turbine, it could be nozzle of a jet engine also. In jet engine also, you know that jet plane, they move with supersonic speed. So how? So obviously the speed of the jet has to be supersonic, no? When it is coming out of the nozzle. Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay.
So this is the formula for Ma less than 1. An area change causes a velocity change of opposite sign, and vice versa. All right. These things are very simple, so let us not bother about it. It is written what happens in supersonic and subsonic case, so you will just read and find it. Now we are coming to a steam nozzle. I think I will skip a few. I will come back. This is important, but let me. Okay, let us go the way we are going. This is a steam nozzle. So I have shown enthalpy entropy diagram. This diagram is, though so far we have not used this diagram much, but we have used mostly temperature entropy diagram, but this is also a good way to represent different processes involving steam. And this diagram has got another name. It is called Mollier diagram. M-O-L-L-I-E-R, Mollier diagram or Mollier chart. Earlier days, when we did not have the calculator, computers were not there, people used to have this Mollier chart and calculation they used to do graphically with the help of Mollier chart. But whatever it may be, for concept, in certain cases, Mollier chart is very important, though we will not do any calculation using Mollier chart. We will not solve any problem using Mollier chart. We will use it for our concept. So basically, there are two pressure. Actually, this is one pressure, higher pressure, and this is the lower pressure. And this is the saturated vapor line. This is saturated vapor line. And let's say this is saturated steam that is entering the nozzle. So this is the entry point of the nozzle, high pressure point P1, and this is the pressure P2 to which the steam expands. If we assume that the expansion is isentropic, which we assume for ideal nozzle, then the total amount of enthalpy drop is AB. Okay, but in actual case, what will happen? There will be some sort of loss. And if there is loss, then entropy of the exiting steam will be more than the entropy of the entering steam. So instead of B, the entropy will correspond to the point B dash on the same pressure line. So the enthalpy drop will be AC. So this is the actual enthalpy drop, but ideally the enthalpy drop could have been AB. So obviously some sort of a efficiency, some sort of an efficiency we can derive, or we can, sorry, define, not derive, we can define. So what is that? AC is the actual drop. That means this is the actual enthalpy difference based on which my nozzle velocity will increase. And AB is the ideal drop according to which the enthalpy, sorry, according to which the nozzle could have worked. And we could have got more kind of velocity increase. So AC by AB, that is H1 minus H3 divided by H1 minus H2, and this is K, this is called nozzle efficiency. Okay. So this will be your nozzle efficiency. That means actual enthalpy drop through the nozzle divided by the isentropic enthalpy drop through the nozzle for the same pressure difference. Good. Effect of friction. So I have told generally the heat transfer through the nozzle is small, but friction is there. Such a big velocity, the steam is flowing through the nozzle, so there is friction. So what is the effect of friction? Friction increases the entropy, obviously. Available energy is decreased. Velocity of flow at the throat, that will also decrease. Velocity of the flowing steam, volume of the flowing steam is decreased, and throat area necessary to discharge a given mass of steam is increased. Okay, so more area is needed because rho AV is the mass flow rate and velocity has reduced due to friction. So obviously I have to have more area. Most of the friction occurs in the divergent part of a convergent divergent nozzle as the length of the converging part is very small. So please remember it that we are using a convergent divergent nozzle, but the length of the convergent part is very small. Generally, we neglect frictional loss in the convergent part. because it is very small. And divergent part is longer, so we consider more we consider not more. The entire frictional pressure drop is happening in the divergent part. Now I will ask you, why convergent part is small and divergent part is large? Acha, have you read Venturi meter? Hello?
Yes, sir. In carburetor.
Not carburetor. Venturi meter you have read in fluid mechanics also. Venturi meter, Venturi throat kind of a thing is there in carburetor. But carburetor है क्या? Engine में है अभी तक?
No, sir.
Still all the books go on till teaching, telling regarding carburetor. Old engine में मिलेगा शायद. ठीक है, छोड़ो. So Venturi meter, actually we have read it in fluid mechanics. This is a flow measuring device. Here from the pressure drop you can get the flow rate. But Venturi meter is also some sort of a convergent divergent structure. But the convergent portion is small. That means the angle of convergence is very large, and the divergent portion is large. That means that angle is small. So what happens in the divergent portion when the fluid is passing, always there is a risk that flow separation may take place. If the angle is very large, that means if it is diverging at a very high rate, then the flow separation may take place. To avoid this, we have to make the slope very mild. And that's why we are having a longer divergent portion compared to the convergent portion. And longer divergent portion will give more frictional resistance. So, जैसे इधर दिखाया that this is the convergent portion and this is the divergent portion. First law of thermodynamics. So H1 plus V1 square by 2 is equal to H2 plus V2 square by 2. Then V2 is equal to almost equal to 2H1 minus H2 because V1 is very small. Where H1 minus H2 is the enthalpy drop across the nozzle, where H1 minus H2 is the all these things we have got. So TdS is equal to dH minus VdP, and if it is isentropic flow, then dH is equal to VdP. So generally, suppose up to this it is throat. So generally up to this we assume that the flow is isentropic, and after that there is friction and the curve will move like this, though the ideal curve will be a straight line. All right. And then for isentropic flow, again for isentropic flow, 1 to 2 dH is equal to integration 1 to 2 VdP. And then we will get it like this. And assuming that it is steam also during expansion, it obey the law of PV to the power n, that is equal to constant, where n is the isentropic index. So we will get this kind of an expression. This kind of an expression we will get. So ultimately we will get this kind of an expression, and the mass flow rate m dot is equal to rho 2 A2 V2. That is the exit plane density, area and velocity, and then we will get V2 by small v2, that is your specific volume. And then we will get this expression of mass flow rate. The exit pressure P2 determines the M2 for a given inlet condition. Inlet condition, I have told, generally that is taken as the stagnation condition. Velocity is equal to 0 there. So only if we know any pressure, if we know the pressure, that is good enough. So if we know the pressure, from there we can calculate the other properties. So the mass flow rate we can get by this formula, and then we can get Y is equal to this one, the maximum mass flow rate we can get. For the maximum mass flow rate we can get, this is the condition, that P star by P1, that is P2 by P1, that is equal to this particular. P2 by P1 is the critical pressure ratio. P2 by P1 is the critical pressure ratio. The critical pressure ratio is the pressure ratio which will accelerate the flow to a velocity equal to the local velocity of sound in the fluid. So this will be the pressure ratio, and it will depend on the value of N or the exponent for the adiabatic expansion, Cp by Cv. In case of steam, of course, we cannot call it Cp by Cv. So it is the exponent for adiabatic expansion. And by putting the value, we will get maximum mass flow rate is like this. Okay. So for maximum mass flow rate, what do we need? We need the area. We need to know the N, value of N, and P1 and V1, these are the pressure at the stagnation point. So stagnation property, from the stagnation property we can get the maximum mass flow rate. All right. Actually, this is the diagram I was looking for. Let us spend certain time on this particular diagram. Let's say this is a convergent divergent nozzle. Can you see this? Of course, I have sent you the PPT, so you can at leisure hour also you can have a look. But now just give some attention. So this is your convergent divergent nozzle. So this is your convergent portion. So it is very quickly converging but diverging with a slow slope. Now here we have got the back pressure, and we are going on this back pressure gradually. Then we will have different mass flow rate and different pressure values. So initially the back pressure is equal to P0. Everywhere the pressure is same. Everywhere the Mach number will be same, that is Mach number is equal to 0. And then we have reduced the back pressure to some extent. But we have reduced it so that up to this there will be pressure reduction, velocity will increase. But after that the back pressure has been reduced from the initial value to this value at value B. But after that the flow will be subsonic, and after that again the pressure is, because this is now not a nozzle but a diffuser. At one point of time at the throat, this is the throat, the velocity will be the sonic velocity. Here m is always less than 1. Here m has become now 1, and then again the m will become less than 1. Subsonic, subsonic, and sonic. Here 0, 0, 0 everywhere. Here it is subsonic, 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 sonic, subsonic. Now I have got design back pressure over here, but somewhere in between I am operating. Then what will happen? Up to this, it will be supersonic. But my back pressure does not support supersonic flow till the end of the nozzle. Where is that? Till the end of the nozzle. So here what will happen? A shock will take place. And immediately from supersonic flow to subsonic flow, this change or transformation will take place, and after that the flow will be subsonic. So it is subsonic, sonic, supersonic, and then there is a shock, and then subsonic. It will go back to outside. But if I am working on the design back pressure, then up to the end of the nozzle, we will have supersonic flow, and at the end of the nozzle, the flow will come out as supersonic flow. Then maximum velocity difference we will get, and maximum velocity difference will give me maximum thrust, the largest jet velocity, everything. So it is very important that I have to work on the design back pressure. In between any other back pressure, if I work, then there will not be any kind of, supersonic flow. One thing you remember, that once we have reached the sonic condition, mass flow rate remains constant, but the velocity increases. Here the velocity increases, and thrust generally, rocket, somebody was asking, rocket or jet engine, it depends on the thrust, mass and velocity. So as we increase the velocity, the thrust is also increasing, though we are not increasing the flow rate or mass flow rate. So this is a diagram, very important diagram, how pressure is changing as we go on having different values of back pressure. And this is a supplementary diagram. Along with this, it comes how the Mach number is changing if we go on changing the back pressure. Okay. So please tell me if up to this you have got any question on this diagram or so. So you can see that with using some sort of a convergent divergent nozzle, this experiment is there in my laboratory. Somebody will teach you. So we can demonstrate all the flow condition. We can have subsonic flow, we can have sonic flow, we can have supersonic flow, and even we can have shock. Shock means that gives a conversion or transformation, immediate transformation between supersonic to subsonic. Bolo. So much of discussion is not needed for a steam nozzle, but I knew that compressible fluid flow has not been discussed with you. So I thought, let me take this opportunity to discuss compressible fluid flow. Anybody has any question? Well, could you understand? You have understood, at least part of it you have understood. Condition is not that bad. So please tell me if I have to repeat some point, if I had to take up this point maybe in the next class. So please tell me. भाई कोई तो कुछ बोलो. As such, I cannot see your faces. कुछ तो बोलो.
It's okay.
But again, let me tell you, this is an important topic. Sometimes again in Viva, etc. and interview, I do not know whether people are writing, anybody writing any competitive exam. So these are important classical topics. These are important topics. So if necessary, please read it from any standard book of fluid mechanics. Any standard book of fluid mechanics will have this thing. I have just initiated, but you can read it from any standard book of fluid mechanics. Let me teach a little bit more, then we have certain discussion. Actually, this is something which is taught in connection with steam power plant. So this is, let's say, this is your TS diagram, TS. This is the steam dome. And let's say this is the expansion process of a, so this is the expansion process. Now, if the expansion is very slow, then what happens as the steam crosses the saturation line, it becomes wet. Okay. So let's say superheated steam, it crosses the saturation line, so it becomes wet. But as I have shown that generally steam can go with to the supersonic velocity range also. The steam expansion is very fast. When there is fast expansion, the steam enters the two-phase dome, but no condensation starts. So this is called some sort of a metastable phase. This is a metastable phase. Is it written anywhere? No, it is not written. So this is a metastable phase, and this kind of steam is called supersaturated steam. Superheated steam is outside the domain. Inside the domain, if the steam is not wet, steam should be wet, then it is called supersaturated region or supersaturated steam. Generally, this continues up to certain point, and after that, the steam becomes wet. And up to certain point means X value is 0.96, 0.97 like this. And if we draw a line through that, that line is called Wilson line. So up to Wilson line, the steam is supersaturated steam. All right. In both the diagram, in TS diagram and HS diagram, this is shown. And in steam turbine, this is quite common. So this is quite common means actually in calculation, etc. people takes care of this one. Otherwise, there is nothing much. Physics wise, this is very important. This could be a problem of research. And I mean, this is a problem of research. People have done research on it. Even today also people do research on it. Because in the supersaturated condition, how the nucleation suddenly takes place, etc. there are very complex and critical issues. Okay. So as far as the course in power plant is concerned, let us just have this knowledge, which is not very much important for power plant at this point of time. It is important, but not at this level, that steam can go to the supersaturated region. As it just enters the two-phase dome, it will not become wet. Up to Wilson line, the steam remains in the vapor condition. Though thermodynamically it should be in the wet condition, it remains dry. All right. So this is what in many books it is there. So that's why I thought I also tell you the same thing. For initially superheated steam, condensation start after it has become dry saturated by proceeding some distance in the nozzle in a short interval of time. Practically, the steam has great velocity. The phenomenon of condensation does not take place at the expected rate. As a result of this, equilibrium between the liquid and vapor phase is delayed, and the steam continues to expand in a dry state. The steam in such a state condition is said to be supersaturated or in metastable state. Okay, and it is called supercooled steam as it is its temperature at any pressure is less than the saturation to that pressure. So the different names are used. Okay. So quickly let me see one problem. Dry saturated steam of 6.5 bar with negligible velocity, means initially it has got negligible velocity, expands isentropically in a convergent divergent nozzle to 1.4 bar and dryness fraction of 0.956. Determine the final velocity of steam from the nozzle if 13% heat is lost in friction. Acha. Find the percentage reduction in the final velocity. So from steam table we will get the enthalpy values. HF2, I mean H1 we will get, which is saturated, superheated. And then at 1.4 bar, this is HFG2, this is HF2, and X value we can find out. H2 is equal to this one. So how do we find out X? X value they have put here, but how do you find out X? Tell me. Tell me, how do you find out X? X is given, no? 0.956. In some problem we have to find out, but in this problem X is given. So we are getting the value of H2. If we get H2, then the velocity we can find out by this particular formula, and meter per second. Then if there is a thermal energy drop by 13%, then the nozzle efficiency is equal to 1 minus 0.13, that is 0.87. The velocity of steam by considering the nozzle efficiency is equal to this one. Then reduction in final velocity, we can get that 6.72% is the reduction in final velocity. I think there is another problem. You can see that problem. I will not discuss. Rather, I will supply you some problem sheet with a number of problems. Some here. Let me tell this one. So this will give you some idea that though the turbine blade we have not read, we will read it. So these are the nozzles. Think of that on a turbine, the blades are mounted on the periphery. So from one end, you will see the turbine blade like this, and this will rotate. So the direction of motion has been shown. And just before that, there is a stationary row of nozzle. So steam will come and then steam will go like this. As there is a change in direction of motion of the steam, you have talked about impulse turbine, Pelton wheel. So similarly here also there is a change of direction. And due to this change of direction, momentum will be imparted and this turbine will move in this direction. The other view is, this is the nozzle, steam is coming like this, this is the blade, and this is actually curved blade. On this plane we cannot see the curvature, so the blade will be pushed in the I mean away from the plane of the diagram. And pressure, how pressure is changing? Very high pressure over here. In the nozzle there is drop in pressure, and through the blade almost pressure remains constant. Velocity in the nozzle, there is increase in velocity. This is the gap between nozzle and blade. There is no change in velocity. And as it passes through the blade passage, the velocity is changing. And after that, there is no change in velocity. So this is how pressure and velocity will change in a when it passes through the nozzle and blade. And this side is the enthalpy. If it is entropy, if it is isentropic expansion in the blade, in the nozzle, then there should be a drop in pressure like this, vertical straight line. But it is not like that. So there will be some sort of a loss. So though the pressure is reducing from P1 to P2, but the entropy is not remaining constant, entropy is increasing. Entropy is increasing means there is a less drop, less change in enthalpy. And obviously that is reflected by some finite value of the nozzle efficiency. Finite value of nozzle efficiency. Okay, I will stop here, but let me tell you one thing. Monday usual classes I will take, Tuesday also usual class I will take, but I have told you earlier, so Wednesday I am trying, Wednesday or Thursday, both myself and Professor Sandipan Ghosh Maulik, we are trying to fix some sort of a test for you. That will be during evening hour. Okay, and 1 hour test. We will have questions which online you can answer. Those kind of questions will be there. I will, for my portion, I will ask you to see the steam table. I will supply the steam property values, but you have to go through this steam table. You should be conversant with the steam table. And this is one information I like to give. So what we are thinking, as you have requested us, we will not go for many examination. We will go maybe this examination and another examination afterwards. But I like to give some, means both of us, we like to give some assignment. Considering your pressure, you can submit the assignment after exams are over, but before the grade submission. So what we will do, there are 104 students, so we will make 5 students in each group. Probably the group, etc. we will make. We will give topic. Maybe partly these topics have been mentioned in the class. Partly it is not. You have to do some study. No problem solution, etc. But you have to do some study, and then you have to submit the assignment, group assignment, mentioning that 5% who has done which part. We believe on your integrity. We have to believe on your integrity. Though there are many complaints that during this period, lot of malpractices are going on. But I think you will be honest enough. And it is some sort of a gentleman's agreement that we will not put any kind of twisting question. Not any kind of question which are not covered or discussed. But you have to be also honest that you will answer them honestly. So these are the information I like to give. We will write mail to you to give the proper, time and all the other things. For my course, I will restrict myself only on cycles. Even the steam generator, I will not ask you question. I will restrict myself on the basic things and cycles. And I do not know what Professor Sandipan Ghosh Maulik will do. He will also inform you. So this is what instruction I wanted to give you. All right. Is it all right?
Yes, sir.
Take it. Sure. Don't worry. We are not. We are not going to torture you or put you in trouble. But you also see any learning process should have some sort of evaluation. we understand many of you are working under stress. So considering that only our evaluation will be done. All right.
So,
Bolo.
regarding the test next week, most of us have an extra class on Wednesday or Thursday. So I think it'll be Wednesday. So preferably, could you please schedule the test on the other day than like the day when we don't have the extra class at 8? We have an extra class for systems and controls at 8
Achha.
p.m. on either of those 2 days. So we'll let you know through an email or something.
Please do it quickly because we also do not have time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure, sure.
Please
We'll
do
let
it
you know
quick.
at the earliest.
Because you see, we have to use some sort of platform. Means not only we have less time, we have to use some sort of platform, module or something. And those people are also highly stressed. So unless we book our slot earlier, so then there will be a problem. Okay. So please inform me as soon as possible. Acha, bhai, before leaving, can 2-3 of you give me your phone number? I have got only the phone number of Nisikant. So can anybody, a couple of you give me your phone number so that if necessary, I can call you? Any 2 or 3 persons, please. Sorry. क्या हुआ भाई?
Yes, sir. Hello.
हाँ.
Yes, sir. 964 Pawan, sir.
ना ना नाम बोलो.
Pawan, sir.
Pawan, P-A-W-A-N.
No,
ठीक है.
V-A-N. P-A-V-A-N. V.
V for victory. Okay. Roll number?
17 ME. 33
ME 33
002.
002. Good.
Yes.
Phone number बोलो.
96472.
96472
39639.
39639. Anybody else?
Sir Manjunath Bhatt.
Acha, Manjunath.
Roll number 17 ME 10038.
No, Baba. 17 ME 1
0038.
0038. Phone number?
73844.
73844
34093.
34093. And another person, bus 3 persons, and then Nisikant I am having. Probably Vishnu also I am having. Another person, please give me your.
Yes, sir. Balchandra.